I have met with the ancient warriors in the place that they call the Moonwell, Frostbloom began, her mew ringing out over the gathered cats. They have been kind enough to give us a way to stay here in the forest, without their anger. The healer couldn't help a quick glance at Wildheart. They have told me about their warrior code, and are saying that we must follow it if we are to stay here. Once we have proved to them that we follow the warrior code, they will release their grasp on the forest and find rest, knowing that we will take care of it. Frostbloom gazed out over the gathered cats. Sunshine and Skip sat together, looking a bit skeptic. Skip more so. Sparrow, Wildheart, and Moth stood together, Leo awkwardly standing close by. The younger cat seemed a bit more willing to listen, and Wildheart especially looked hopeful to be rid of her angry spirit within her. Trout stood a little ways off, clearly listening, but making sure not to get in anyone's way. Only Frostbloom could see him from where he was standing. As their eyes met, both seemed to look a bit too long before awkwardly looking away. Skip flicked his tail in annoyance, clearly tired of all the ancient warrior talk. He seemed eager to return to his kits, who were playing nearby. So, what does this following the code exactly entail? It was clear that he was making an effort not to be outright hostile, but Sparrow's tail still bristled a bit. By agreeing to this, we would be following the ways of the ancient warriors. We'd start living by the same code they lived by. Frostbloom proceeded to explain the warrior code to the others. In general, Skip didn't seem too interested, but even he seemed to approve of the no kits be harmed code. And Trout looked like he'd swallowed a bee when he heard they would have to follow the word of the leader. A calm murmur spread over the cats as she finished. They were all discussing with each other what this meant to them and how believable it all was. Or wasn't. In the end, Skip shook his head. I've followed my own way my entire life. I'm not about to abandon who I am so that the warriors will allow us to live here. They haven't lived here for many seasons, and the wildcats need food and shelter. He finished firmly, casting a glance towards his kits. Though they seemed to have gone to their nests, as he could no longer see them from the clearing. Trout had to agree with the old Tom. The ancient warriors may have ruled this forest once, but they were long gone, and no one lived here in the forest when the wildcats had settled. I'll follow their code. Wildheart's voice rang out. Cats looked over in surprise, as Wildheart wasn't usually the most vocal cat, especially in large groups like this. I mean, I already have the name for it, and if that's all it takes to have the spirit leave me alone, I'll gladly do it. Sparrow yowled his approval, and Moth too seemed happy for her friend, though not quite as eager to support the code. Leo awkwardly chimed in. With such differing opinions, the crowd of cats seemed to slowly divide into two separate groups. Some cats standing in the middle, conflicted. Frostbloom's tail twitched, and her whiskers seemed to tense, as some cats shot glares at each other. How about we vote for it? Every cat looked back to a suddenly very stiff Trout, who met everyone's gaze with wide eyes. How do you mean? Sunshine asked, a light tone to her voice. Well, back in my home group, we would vote for difficult decisions together. Like this. The Tom quickly stood up and went to collect a small flower from a nearby bush, and placed it towards the dens. Then he ran over to put his paw on a rock by the water bank. The flower over there represents us following this, warrior code. And this rock represents the wildcats not changing. Things will be exactly like they have always been. He looked over at the healer with his ears down, almost a bit ashamed. Frostbloom, since it was your suggestion, you're, not allowed to vote. The crowd of cats looked at each other, as if debating whether this was really necessary. After a bit of pondering, Sparrow walked over to the flower and stood firmly. I vote to follow the warrior code, and earn the blessing of the ancient warriors to stay here in the forest. This seemed to trigger a Skip, as the Tom stood up and walked over with a flick of his tail to stand next to Trout, who hadn't moved, seemingly having cast his vote already. He wasn't meeting Frostbloom's eyes. Sunshine seemed to hesitate between the two sides, one having her son Sparrow, and the other her mate Skip. She shook her head and stood in thought. She couldn't be biased as to which option to choose. The whole point of this was to do what she felt was right. And with that, she raised her head in determination and walked over to Sparrow. She could feel the hurt look on her back as Skip stared in disbelief. But this was right for her. She wanted to support her kid's future by creating a world of stability and unity, not one of grudges. Soon, almost all cats had chosen their sides, and they all stared a bit awkwardly at each other, as the sides had an equal amount of cats. The only cat who stood in the middle was Leo, whose tail was stiff with hesitance. Oh, what would Olive do? He wondered. She wasn't here to choose, as she was still sick in the medicine den. The more he thought, the more confused he got. He could feel the others looking at him, and in a rush he ran towards the flower. Olive was so determined to find the Moonwell. Surely she would want to follow the warrior code, he thought desperately. The tension in the air seemed to prickle everyone's fur, as Frostbloom spoke up. It looks like... Hold on! What about Olive and the kits? Don't they get to vote? It was Skip. He looked towards Trout with almost desperation in his eyes. Trout tried to avoid his hostility as he glanced away. Well, since Olive isn't in any condition to vote, we wouldn't count her, and the kids are too young. They didn't get a vote in my home group. Skip let out a hiss. We're not in your home group. That's the whole point of this. We're in the Wildcats camp, and here we do things the way Wildcats do them. He looked over the crowd, but it quickly became apparent that no one was taking him seriously. He felt like this control was slipping. It made his blood burn and claws itch to get something. With frustration, he pushed past Trout and out into the forest. The other side seemed to do their best to ignore him. As they walked up to Frostbloom, they all seemed to have questions. How do we prove we can follow the warrior code? What are the details? Did you see the ancient warriors by the Moonwell? They all made Frostbloom's head reel, as she tried to catch them all and answer the best she could, before one stood above the others. So, what do we do now? Her heart skipped a beat as she met the eyes of Trout. He had chosen to side against her, but now looked suddenly ashamed of himself. Confusion bubbled up inside her as she tried to respond. Well... Heather strained every muscle in her body as she tried to push herself through the small hole in the bush surrounding camp. She scrabbled with her hind legs and finally felt the bush let go of her. But she hadn't quite expected it and ended up flying out and rolling over on the ground. Ouch! Shh! The hush came from her brother, who easily slipped through the brambles with his smaller body. Don't let the adults hear you! Heather pricked her ears, listening to the intense conversation they were having in the clearing. They still sound distracted, Heather commented, only to get a huff from her brother. Yeah, think the birds. As they walked further and further from camp, Heather started to get increasingly paranoid at the sounds and smells around her. A bird cawed in a tree above, and she leaped so far she almost bumped into her brother, who seemed much more confident than her. As time passed, they kept finding new things to explore. a really tall rock, a small cave, some funny grass, or... Heather suddenly shrieked, and Storm's ear pricked. He came running over, feeling his muscles tense as he flew past his sister and whatever had scared her. His jaws locked with tough skin and a wriggling strong body. He did his best to get a better hold of the creature, and soon it went still. Both the kids looked at each other, shocked. Storm had managed to catch a young snake and saved his sister from a dangerous situation. He lifted his head proudly and stood over the snake in triumph. Heather, meanwhile, was ready to go home with her new fear of snakes. The kids' ears perked as they heard voices in the distance. Heather! Storm! It sounded like their dad, and Storm gave an annoyed sigh. Why does Dad have to be such a good tracker? He asked. Heather, though, silently thanked the birds for the help they had been sent. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Warrior Cats Sims 3 challenge after what is by far the longest intro, cinematic intro, that we have had so far in this series. It took me half an hour to record it. So yes, by far the longest intro. But we had quite some interesting things that actually happened. So, of course, we had Frostbloom, who came home with Trout, and kind of told everyone... Oh, and you have a yellow python. Kind of told everyone, you know, about the warrior code. And Trout, who actually comes from a family of fishing cats, decided that, you know, well, back in his home, they usually would vote for difficult decisions like this. So he suggested that, and of course, they actually voted to follow the warrior code, thankfully. We had enough cats to do that. And meanwhile, we also rolled the event that the kids would run away. And Heather is actually the one who started it all. But Storm rolled to catch a piece of prey, which is very impressive, Storm. So I am very pleased. He probably got quite the scolding from his father, but we do actually have an extra piece of snake here, which is very cool. Yeah, and Trout actually wants to go and play in a puddle. I think he actually really, really enjoys fishing. So, well, hold on. Maybe we shouldn't fish with him just yet. Maybe he's just gonna play in the water. I do wonder if this, like, trains the fishing skill. It does. I think it does. So he's gonna just play around in the water just because, you know, that's kind of where he comes from. He really likes the water. His family sort of... I mean, they named him after a fish. And from his coating, he very much looks like someone who could be in the water. So, yes. But he is having loads of fun, as we can clearly see. But I actually, this episode, I wanted to not so much continue the story here by playing with the cats. I want to be more focused on what this warrior code, well, following this warrior code will actually entail for us. Because this is the next big plot point in our story. Oh, and Sunshine, she has a hairball. She was gonna eat the garter snake, I believe, so I'm gonna give that to her. But yes, we actually need to follow the warrior code now, so that the ancient warriors will allow us to live in this forest, and they will, well, have said anyways, that they are actually going to leave the forest, well, these lands, if they, because it's time for them to move on, they've said, but they can't leave until they know that someone here is, you know, keeping their legacy going and protecting the forest, which we have then said that, you know, we are willing to try that. Anyhow, let's put prey in the prey pile. We have some medicinal herbs. I'm actually just gonna put this in Frostbloom's inventory just because we've had quite the event happen here. So we are actually going to go out on our first patrol for now, which we are going to Serpent's Rock, which is actually where the kits went, which is pretty funny. I'm very happy neither of them got hurt or, like, you know, died. That's very, very good news. Okay, let's see. Olive we can't control, but we can control Skip, and he seems... Well, actually, Sunshine seems even more eager to go out and hunt. So Skip, you'll stay home with the kids. Trout, you do have a hunting skill. Sparrow, definitely. And Wild Heart. Okay. So we're gonna take Sparrow, Wild Heart, and Trout with us to actually patrol Serpent's Rock. And now we have already made a slight increase in our challenge. Oh, and I just realized all the cats I was sending out were, like, already together. That's really, really cool. But yes, the warrior code. So what this entails is that we need to, of course, follow it. And I've written up a couple rules for a challenge we basically have to do. So there are 16 codes. If I'm wrong on any of this, by the way, it's fine. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate. And I have shortened down the codes as well, like text-wise, just to make sure that we can, you know, I can quickly get an overview of what the code entails. Sparrow and Trout, here you come. Okay, hold on. Let me just send these cats on, you know, their hunt. We're gonna have you hunt a bunch. Like so. Wild Heart, you can come over here. Stalk for 3, 4, 5, and 6, and even 7, it looks like. Sparrow, you can do the same thing. Well, you can actually hunt for 8. Very impressive. And Trout, you can hunt for 3. Unfortunately. Okay, so while our cats are hunting, I will leave the screen just, you know, like this for you guys to watch, while I read up the rules for you guys. So we have to, each part of the code has like a small challenge that we need to complete. So I'm gonna read up exactly which challenges we need to complete. And you guys don't have to really keep track of this. This is just so you know what we're actually doing. Because, well, it's a lot to keep track of. It is 16 codes after all. So without further ado, let's get into it because it's a long, long list. So we have the code, and as I said, I did shorten them, so these are not the full codes. If you actually want the full code, you can find it on the Warriors wiki. But we do have the defend your clan even with your life. So to complete this part of the code, we must have a cat defend the wildcat's territory from danger even if it does cost them their life. So they don't have to die, but we do need to have a cat defend against, for example, a dog or a cat who runs in. Who are, like, on our territory. So it can't be, like, up in the two-leg place or whatever. It has to be a cat or dog on our territory that we are chasing out. And then our second code is do not hunt or trespass on another clan's territory. And this one was a bit complicated because we don't have any other clans right now. So basically what I took it as for this challenge for our series is that we actually have to go to the Moonwell on a half moon meeting with Frostbloom, and we are not allowed to hunt around the Moonwell, like on the Moonwell's territory. So that's pretty much just that. Go to a half moon meeting with Frostbloom and don't hunt on the Moonwell territory. And then our other, number 3, is elders, queens, sick or injured cats, and kits must be fed before apprentices or warriors. To complete this, we have to give food to one of the above, while an apprentice or warrior goes hungry. So it has to be the last piece of prey in the prey pile, and a warrior or apprentice must be hungry at the same time. We only have to do this once, so, you know, it's more like a checklist, not a continuous thing we have to do. Because that would be really, really difficult to keep a track of. Anywho, we have prey is killed to be eaten, give thanks to StarClan. And for this, we just have to, well, we have to hunt 100 pieces of prey. Yeah, 100 pieces of prey. And this one, because we hunt prey so often in our episodes, I'll just keep like I'll loosely keep track of it. But you guys don't have to worry about this. Of course, I might miss a prey here or there. That is what it is. But it'll be a fun challenge. Another one is a kit must be at least 6 moons in order to become an apprentice, which for us, that of course is technically just 3 moons based on how we have our ages in Sims. But what that pretty much just entails is that one of our kits have to grow into an apprentice and get a mentor. Newly appointed warriors will keep a silent vigil for 1 night after receiving their warrior name, and this we just have to have a cat keep vigil, not allowed to move from, you know, the evening until morning, even if they do get sick. And we also have the code. So here we have a lot of deputy codes, and I had to like kind of change them a little bit for the challenge, otherwise they would all just be completed like at once. So we do have the code newly appointed warriors will keep, a cat cannot become a deputy without having mentored at least 1 apprentice. So this basically means we have to appoint a deputy who has formerly been a mentor. Which will not be our first deputy, just because we're gonna get a leader next time, and that is actually what the next code is. So the deputy will become clan leader when the leader dies, retires, or is exiled. In our case, it's just not the deputy, and it'll just be a cat who becomes leader, but I will count that as completing this part of the code. Otherwise, it's just 3 codes that are just choose a mentor or a deputy. And then we also have the code that says after the death, retirement, promotion, or exile of the deputy, the new deputy must be chosen before moon high. So we need to choose a deputy before midnight, basically. And those 2 last codes are probably going to be completed together, most likely pretty soon. Possibly even in the next episode, I'm unsure. Also, it looks like our patrol is kind of done. We seem to have caught lots of prey. And as I said, I'm just kind of ignoring what's happening in the game today, just because I am reading like a lot of things. So let's see, do we have any interesting things going on? No, it doesn't really look like it. We can always just put... Oh, you know, Sunshine is still hunting. That's pretty cool. Let's look at Sunshine hunt, and let's have her catch these spiders at the end as well. Okay, there we go. So, but I will actually choose the leader very, very soon, because now they have decided to follow the warrior code. So they know that they need a leader. And I will also be swapping their names, and we will start like holding the ceremonies and stuff now. We will not be an official clan, but we will be sort of an acting clan, if that makes any sense. With the blessing, of course, of the ancient warriors. We're not just taking their culture. They are the ones who want us to do this, so that's very nice. So, and another code is a gathering of all clans is held at the full moon during a truce that lasts for 1 night. Or, well, for the night. And for this, we need to hold a gathering. I have actually not figured out quite the details, but this is definitely going to be a pretty big plot point at some point. But I have not figured out the details just yet. We also have the code of boundaries must be checked and marked daily. And for this, we must patrol 28 times, which is a full year. A full year of patrols. So it's hopefully this is going to take us around a year to complete. But we will see. No warrior can neglect a kit in pain or danger, even if the kit is from a different clan. So for this one, we have to save a kitten that is not from our clan. Whether that is, you know, taking in a queen with her kits or helping an abandoned kit, I'm not sure. But we do have to help a kitten that is specifically not for our clan. And then the words of the clan leader is the warrior code. Here we are going to have the leader just in a story sense make 3 unique decisions. And that's about it. And then we have an honorable warrior does not need to kill other cats in order to win their battle. So we need to win 3 fights against other cats, but we cannot kill them. So that's a little bit of a fun one. We need to win them, but we can't kill them. And it has to be, of course, cats from outside Wild Clan. Or the wild cats. And almost the last code now. A warrior rejects the soft life of a kitty pet. So from now on, we won't really be eating from, well, you know, some cats might, but in general, it is kind of taboo to eat from food bowls now. So don't eat from food bowls or interact with 2 legs in a friendly manner for a full season is how we complete that one. And then at the end, our last code is each clan has the right to be proud and independent, but in times of trouble, they must forget their boundaries and fight side by side to protect the clans. And for this one, I have simply written in complete the spirits challenge. So this will be completed when we have completed all other, the rest of the warrior code. And there we go, you guys. That was quite a lot, and Skip seems to be sick. That's fine. We'll figure it out. But yeah, that was quite a lot of information. As I said, you guys don't have to really think about it at all. This will mostly just be for my sake as I figure out the behind the scenes and how we, of course, control the cats and what happens. I will, of course, put the prey in the prey pile, except for the red assassin beetle. We really don't want to put that in there. So the cats have something to eat. But yes, it was quite the long episode with lots and lots of, you know, special announcements and a challenge that we're now playing with and so forth. But we did actually complete our first patrol, so that's already 1 out of 28. We're already on our way. But now you guys know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this warrior code challenge that we have to complete. The different challenges. So, with that being said, I suppose we can actually, let's end it with Sunshine. After all, she did provide some wonderful, beautiful shots that we could watch while I explain the whole thing. Oh, and she didn't seem to catch it, but that's okay. Not everything has to be a success, Sunshine. And with that, you guys, I will end the episode here, and next time we will hopefully get started on the warrior code. And don't worry about all the yellow portraits, I will roll about them right now behind the scene. So, without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!